My father forbade me from going to mom's party because of my sister's successful boyfriend. I was humiliated. Son, if you come, you're just going to embarrass us all. My father's voice struck through the phone. It wasn't a yell, it was something worse. It was a statement delivered with a cutting coldness, as sharp and heavy as a butcher knife. I stood absolutely paralyzed with the receiver pressed to my ear, unable to process the blow. Outside my office, the world kept turning. I was on the 30th floor of a skyscraper in Santa Fe, in the financial heart of Mexico City. The afternoon sun bounced off the glass of neighboring buildings, creating a light show I usually found inspiring. But in that moment, everything felt distant, blurry. I could hear the constant murmur of my team typing in the open space behind my office's glass wall. The sound of success, the sound of my creation. It felt miles away. I am 30 years old. My name is Ignacio, and in that instant, I felt 10. I let his words settle, let them take root in my brain. Embarrass us. I analyzed the word. He didn't say it would be uncomfortable. He didn't say it might not be a good idea. He didn't even say, we'd prefer you didn't come. The word he used, with absolute intention, was embarrassment. I was an embarrassment. It had all started 30 seconds earlier, in the most banal, normal way possible. It was exactly 3 weeks until my mother's 58th birthday. Like every year without fail since I moved to the capital, I was planning the trip. It was a sacred ritual for me. I would drive my Mazda for the 2.5 hours on the highway, leaving the infernal city traffic for the relative calm of our home in Puebla. I always did it. It was the ritual, the duty of the son, the good son, the obedient son. I called home. The phone rang 2, 3 times. I expected to hear my mother's voice, her sing-song tone, to start planning. What should I bring? Should I buy the cake here in the city? Did we need more mole, or had the aunts and uncles confirmed? But it wasn't her who answered, it was my father. Well, his dry voice said. Ignacio, he said, and I noticed a strangely formal tone, as if he were speaking to a client, not his son. Good that you called. Hi, Dad, I said, leaning against the cold glass of the office, watching the chaos of cars below. Hey, you answered fast. I was just calling to let you know that for Mom's birthday, I'm going to arrive a day early, on Friday afternoon. That way I can help you with whatever is needed, moving tables or getting ice, you know. Silence. A heavy, dense silence, loaded with something I couldn't identify. I could hear his breathing on the other end of the line. A throat clearing. Look, son, he began. About that. This year, well, this year is going to be a little different. Different? Are you guys going out? Are you doing it at a restaurant? No, he rushed to say. At the house, as always. But look, it's better. It's better if you don't come. I blinked. The constant hum of the servers in the room next door, a sound that normally lulled me, suddenly felt like a drill in my ear. How? Is this a joke? Why not? He cleared his throat again. I could imagine him rubbing the back of his neck, uncomfortable but firm. Your sister Lorena is going to bring her new boyfriend. He made a long pause, calculated for emphasis. And this boy is good. He's someone important, do you understand? He is a regional manager at a big company, a real company. He dresses well, speaks well, knows how to behave. It's a formal presentation to the family. I still didn't understand. And? Congratulations to her, I guess. What do I have to do with that? Ignacio, please. His voice hardened instantly, losing the little patience he pretended to have. Use your head. You know. You. Well, your job isn't comfortable to explain. It's not something respectable. It's better if you aren't there. We don't want distractions. Distractions. I repeated the word, it came out of my mouth like a choked whisper. I felt an unpleasant heat rising from my stomach to the back of my neck. My blood started to boil. Are you telling me I can't go to my mother's birthday because my job isn't comfortable to explain? I'm saying your presence is an embarrassment, he exploded. His voice turned into a dull snarl, full of contempt. Always with your student rags, with your weird t-shirts, and talking about your weird computer things. This is an important event for your sister, and if you insist on coming, you're just going to embarrass us all. Did you understand? He paused, and then came the final blow. So forget you have a father if you show up here. And before I could respond, before the shock allowed me to formulate a single syllable, before I could scream or cry, he hung up. Click. The click of the call ending was the loudest sound I had heard all day, louder than the traffic, louder than my team. I remained standing, motionless, staring at the skyline of a city I felt I had conquered, yet feeling exactly like that 10-year-old boy who had just been punished for no reason. The phone felt heavy and cold in my hand. Embarrassment. The word resonated in the silence of my glass office. Embarrassment, shame, disgrace. I slowly sat down in my ergonomic chair, Herman Miller Aeron, a chair that cost more than my parents' entire living room set. My father's words kept bouncing around in my head like a pinball, hitting every nerve. Your job isn't comfortable to explain. Embarrassment. Rags. My job. I looked around. My office wasn't a cubicle, it was a glass corner with panoramic views. I was in the main office of Cobalto Financial, my company, a company I co-founded 4 exhausting years ago. What started in my bachelor apartment in Colonia, Roma with 2 friends, 3 laptops on pizza boxes, and a ridiculous dream, was now one of the fastest growing fintechs in Mexico. We handled millions of pesos in digital payment transactions every day. Big companies used our platform to pay their payrolls. I was the chief operating officer, the COO. I had a team of 50 people under my charge, brilliant engineers, aggressive financial analysts, bilingual support staff. My job was building the financial future of the country. My job was creating employment. My job paid for my car, my luxury apartment, and, until 10 minutes ago, all of my parents' comforts. But to my family, I was just Nachito, the one who fixes computers, or as my sister Lorena called me last time, the code pecker. To them, a real job was one you could see and touch, one that greased your hands, one that required a suit and tie every day at a boring bank, one that gave you a physical title like doctor or engineer in a noisy factory in Puebla. My job was abstract, it was intangible, it was numbers on a screen. It was playing on the computer. My sister Lorena, on the other hand, she did have a respectable job. She was 32, 2 years older than me. She worked in public relations for a local clothing brand in Puebla, a brand that probably invoiced in a year what Cobalto Financial moved in an afternoon. Lorena's job consisted of organizing events with canapés, smiling a lot, taking photos with important people in Puebla society, and appearing in the social pages of the local newspaper. She earned in a month what I earned in 3 days, but her job was social, it could be seen, it could be bragged about at family meals. My daughter, the public relations specialist. It was always like this. Lorena was the golden child, the princess of the house, bright, loud, charming. I was the other one. The invisible one, the quiet one, the weirdo. The memory hit me with the force of a brick, knocking the wind out of me. I was 10 years old. I had spent 3 whole months building a damn volcano out of baking soda and vinegar for the state science fair. I put LED lights on it, painted it with care. It erupted 10 times in a row without fail. I won first place. I remember running from the school bus with the cheap gold plastic trophy in my hand, so heavy and so glorious. I felt like my chest was going to explode with pride. I ran breathlessly. I opened the door to the house. Mom! Dad! I won. The house was in twilight, a strange silence. I found them in the living room hugging Lorena, who was 12 years old and crying inconsolably with dramatic hiccups. "What happened?" I asked, my voice lower, my trophy still held high. My father silenced me with a furious look, one I knew well. "Shut your mouth, Ignacio. Can't you see your sister is upset?" I froze. It turned out Lorena hadn't been chosen for the lead role in the school play. They had given her the role of Tree 3. That was the drama of the day. That was the national tragedy that eclipsed everything else. I left my trophy on the kitchen table. It was there for a week. I watched it accumulate dust, and then banana peels and coffee stains. A week later, my mother put it in a box in the attic so it wouldn't be in the way. They never mentioned it again. 30 years. 30 years and nothing had changed. I had built a metaphorical volcano that was erupting in the real world, changing an industry. But they were still applauding Lorena for existing, and now for getting a regional manager boyfriend. I, the COO and co-founder, was still Tree 3. I was still an embarrassment. There was one person, just one person in my entire family who actually understood. My Aunt Ophelia, my mother's younger sister, the black sheep, the weird one of the family according to my father because she read too much, traveled alone, and, the capital sin, never married. To me, she was the only sane person in the asylum. She was the only one who saw me. As I looked at my phone, now dark and silent on the mahogany desk, I remembered a call with her. It was about 6 months ago. I was particularly frustrated that day. "Mijito, how is that company of yours going?" she asked, and her voice always sounded genuinely interested, not like my parents' condescending interrogation. I was reading in El Financiero that Cobalto Financial received a very strong Series B investment round. "Congratulations, Nacho. It makes me so proud to read your name there." I froze in my apartment. "You read that in El Financiero?" "Of course I did. Did you think I didn't Google you, nephew? Someone has to keep track of the family genius. Your mother thinks you're still selling computer parts on the internet." I laughed, but the sound came out hollow, bitter. I took advantage of the trust. I complained. I told her I was tired of working 14 hours a day so my family could think I was playing on the computer. Tired that no matter how much I achieved, to my parents I would always be the weirdo. And I complained about what hurt me most, that they kept asking me for money. "Auntie, it just doesn't stop," I told her, pacing in circles in my living room. "Lorena's credit card, Dad's car, the roof of the house site's always an emergency. And then they treat me like I'm an ATM without feelings. Not even a thank you, just a deposit this." My aunt was silent for a moment on the other end of the line. I could hear her lighting a cigarette. When she spoke, her voice was serious, devoid of all joking. "Nacho, listen to me well," she said. "I want you to listen very carefully. Be very careful. You are a good boy. You always have been. Too good. And you are burning yourself alive to keep them warm." She paused to take a drag of her cigarette. "And you know what the worst part is, Mijito? That they aren't going to thank you for it. They've already gotten used to the heat. They take it for granted that your obligation is to burn. The day you stop burning," she continued, "the day you decide to keep a little fire for yourself, they aren't going to ask if you're okay. They aren't going to ask if you're tired or if you're cold. They are just going to complain about the cold." She paused again. "To them, Mijito, and it hurts my soul to tell you this, but you are not a son. You are a resource." At that moment, I thought she was exaggerating, that cynicism was consuming her. "Don't be so harsh, Auntie," I told her. "They're my family, they love me. That's what they tell you so you keep burning," she concluded. "Watch out, Nacho. Watch out. Now, sitting in my 30 million peso office, with my father's insult ringing in my ears, Aunt Ophelia's words took on a terrifying, prophetic meaning. Your presence is an embarrassment. This boy is important. Your job isn't comfortable to explain. My aunt was absolutely right. My father's call hadn't been a simple impulsive insult. It had been a human resources notification. Resource Ramiro, the regional manager, had just been acquired. A new, shiny, respectable resource. Resource Ignacio, the computer weirdo, had been downgraded. He was no longer necessary, he was obsolete. A cold anger, much deeper and darker than the initial humiliation, began to settle in my stomach. A quiet anger, a calculating anger. A resource, I thought aloud, looking at the horizon. Very well. Very well. Let's see what happens when this resource decides to turn off the tap. The hot anger, the kind that makes you shake and want to punch the wall, dissipated as quickly as it came. What remained was something much more dangerous, a glacial cold, absolute calm. I got up from my chair. I walked with deliberate steps toward the small coffee bar we had in the corner of the office. I poured myself a glass of cold water. My hands didn't shake even a little. My pulse was steady. A thought, clear and sharp as glass, crossed my mind and settled there: I pay their bills. I went back to my desk. The afternoon sun gave a golden shine to the wood. I took out my personal smartphone. I ignored the 30 Slack notifications and the 15 new work emails. I opened my banking app, BBVA, the blue one. My fingerprint unlocked the screen on the first try. With almost surgical precision, like one of my engineers debugging code, I navigated to the scheduled payments or direct debit section. And there they were, like little soldiers of my stupidity, like monuments to my need for approval, lined up month after month. The list was clear, almost insulting in its normality. CFE, Federal Electricity Commission, an average of 2,500 pesos a month. A very high amount for a two-person house. Ah, right. The air conditioning Lorena insisted on installing throughout the house last summer, which I paid for under the heading of urgent waterproofing. Agua de Puebla, water 1,000 pesos a month. Telmex, internet and phone 1,500 pesos. The highest package. Fiber optic. The fastest speed. Surely so Lorena could watch her Netflix series in 4K without interruptions. Sky, satellite TV 3,000 pesos a month. The Platinum Premium package with all the movie channels, series, and, of course, all the sports. My father didn't miss a single NFL or Puebla soccer match, although he always complained about how expensive everything was. A total of 8,000 Mexican pesos. Every month, religiously, without fail. I did a quick calculation on my phone's calculator. When had I started paying this? Just after closing the investment Series A. Almost 2 years ago. 23 months, to be exact. 8,000 pesos multiplied by 23 months equals 184,000 pesos. I stared at the figure. 184,000 Mexican pesos. I felt nothing. It was a void, a black hole in the center of my chest. 184,000 pesos. The price of being a good son. And then the void filled, but not with anger. It filled with vivid, painful memories. I saw the cancellation email for my flight to Cancun last year. My best friends from university, a week, all-inclusive. I needed it, I was on the verge of burnout. But a week before leaving, my mother called me crying. Mijito, you don't know what a disaster. The water boiler broke, but the plumber says it's not just the boiler, it's all the pipes in the house. It's all rotten. It's going to be like 25,000 pesos. Ignacio, your father is furious. He says he's going to sell the car. No, Mom, calm down, I told her, feeling their stress as my own. Don't sell anything. I'll take care of it. I canceled the trip. I lost the deposit. I transferred the money to my mother. 2 months later, Aunt Ophelia, in one of our casual calls, dropped a comment, "Hey, what a nice bag your sister bought. She went to Mexico City for the weekend, to Palacio de Hierro. She uploaded a photo to Facebook. She said it was a gift from your mother for her birthday. It cost a fortune, you could tell. One of those French ones. The boiler. The pipes. The 184,000 pesos weren't just numbers on a screen, they were my cancelled vacations. They were the business dinners I paid out of my own pocket so as not to charge them to the company. They were the times I decided not to change my own car, even though it was rattling everywhere. They were my sacrifices. Sacrifices that today had just been valued in a single word, embarrassment. I leaned back in the chair with the banking app still open. The figure 184,000 shone on the screen. I remembered perfectly how it all started. The exact call was almost 2 years ago, 23 months. We had just closed our investment round, we had secured $5 million. It was crazy. The news had come out in El Financiero, in Forbes, Mexico. My name was there small, but it was there, Ignacio Garcia, COO and co-founder. I felt on top of the world, but also, and this is the absurd part, one felt guilty. Guilty for being in the big city triumphing while my parents remained in Puebla with my father's modest pension, an ex-manager of a textile factory that closed. It was then that my mother called. Her timing was always perfect. Her voice was a whisper of worry and feigned pride, a tactic she had perfected over decades. "Mijito, how good that you're doing so well. We saw the news in the newspaper. How proud we are of you, my love. Your father even showed it to the neighbors." A lie, of course. My father probably used it to wrap avocados, but at that moment, I wanted to believe her. "Thanks, Ma," I said, inflated with stupid pride. "It's been a lot of work, but we're getting there. Hey, son." Her voice lowered, becoming confidential, conspiratorial. "Since you're doing so well. We here, well, you know, we barely get by. Your father's pension isn't enough for anything with this inflation. And with your sister Lorena. Oh, poor thing." I tensed. The, "oh, poor thing," was always the prelude to a financial catastrophe. "What's wrong with Lorena?" "Oh, Mijito, it's just that she has it so hard. You don't understand. Her job is very high social stress. She has to maintain an image, you know. Going out with important people, buying nice clothes, going to the beauty salon every week. It's terrible pressure for her, poor thing. And well, we try to help her with what we can from the pension, but..." She made a dramatic pause, letting the implication float in the air. "You, on the other hand, have it so easy," she said. And this time I did detect the irony in her voice, although she didn't. "You work from home, in pajamas, playing on your computer. It's a blessing, don't you think? No social pressures, without having to spend on clothes." I remained silent. In pajamas. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a row in 6 months. Playing on the computer had cost me sweat, tears, whole nights without sleep, and stress that was causing me chronic gastritis. My easy life was a 14-hour daily hell. "The point is, son," she continued, oblivious to my silence, "we were thinking. Since it doesn't cost you so much, why don't you help us with the house bills? Just the electricity, water, internet, those things. Basic little things. At least while Lorena stabilizes and finds someone to support her. A good man. While Lorena stabilizes." The phrase sounded reasonable at the time. I felt guilty for my easy life. I felt like the provider, the successful son who could finally rescue his family. The silent hero. "Sure, Mommy, don't worry. I'll take care of it," I said, feeling a warmth of pride. "Oh, Mijito, you're an angel, a saint. I knew we could count on you, not like your sister, who has enough with her own battles, poor thing. That same day, proud and stupid, I logged into my online banking and set up the automatic payments. So you don't miss them, I told her. I thought it would be for a few months. While Lorena stabilizes, turned into 23 months. 2 years of watching my sister debut new clothes and travel to the beach in Acapulco on her social media, while I paid for the high-speed internet she used to upload those photos. And all because my job was easy. I returned to the present. My cell phone screen was still on, showing me the list of my automated filial duties. Scheduled payments. What an ironic name. Lorena had now stabilized. She had caught a regional manager. So stabilized that the embarrassment, the ATM, was no longer necessary. My Aunt Ophelia was right, I wasn't a son, I was a resource. And now, obsolete. I looked at Lorena's smiling face in my mother's WhatsApp profile picture, the one she used to write me every so often to ask for a little favor. Always smiling, always impeccable, always expensive. An absolute calm took over me, like the eye of a hurricane. There was no longer anger, there was no pain, there was no sadness. Just a crystalline clarity, an absolute certainty. I am not an embarrassment, I thought, and almost said it aloud. I am their sponsor. And the sponsorship is over. I lifted my thumb. My finger hovered over the screen. I tapped the first scheduled payment, CFE, 2,500 Mexican pesos. The app asked with its robotic voice text, "Do you wish to cancel this scheduled payment?" I tapped confirm. Click. The payment disappeared from the list. The second one. Agua de Puebla, 1,000 pesos. Do you wish to cancel this scheduled payment? Confirm. Click. Gone. The third. Telmex. 1,500 pesos. Confirm. Click. Gone. The fourth, the most expensive. Sky. 3,000 pesos. Confirm. Click. Gone. The list was empty. The screen now almost mockingly said, "You have no scheduled payments." It wasn't an act of revenge. I didn't do it imagining their chaos. Not at that moment. I did it because for the first time in 30 years of existing, I was recovering the only thing I had left, what my father had tried to take from me that afternoon on the phone, my own respect. I felt as if I had taken off a 100 kilograms lead vest. I literally felt I could breathe deeper. I felt light. I closed the banking app. I turned off the office computer, something I never did before 9 p.m. I took my car keys. That night I didn't go home to eat reheated food. I went to an expensive restaurant in Polanco. Alone. I ordered a steak that cost what a month of my parents' electricity cost, and I poured myself an expensive mezcal, one I had been saving for a special occasion. I toasted to the air, to the illuminated city. To obsolete resources, I said aloud. A couple of diners looked at me strangely. I didn't care. The liquid burned my throat, but it was a delicious burn, a burn that for the first time, I had chosen. The first week passed in a deafening, absolute silence. There were no calls from my father to apologize. There were no messages from my mother to smooth things over. There was nothing. I assumed they were too busy, happy and proud, preparing the red carpet for the regional manager, cleaning the house, planning the menu. The embarrassment, had been erased from the equation. I immersed myself in work. 12-hour meetings, financial projections, hiring the life of a weirdo who plays on the computer. I tried not to think about it. Then, exactly 7 days after the call, on a Tuesday afternoon while I was in a board meeting, my personal phone vibrated on the table. Discreetly, I saw the screen. A message from my mother. It was 2 weeks until the party. My heart skipped a beat. Would it be an apology? Your father exaggerated, please come. I opened the message. Message from Mom, Nacho, Majito, the Telmex bill arrived. Can you pay it? It expires tomorrow. Kisses. I stared at the screen. Majito, kisses. And in the middle, the order. Not a word about my father's call, not a, how are you, not a, we regret what your father said, it was a mistake. Nothing. Zero. Just the payment order wrapped in fake, condescending affection. As if nothing had happened. As if I were a low-level employee who forgot to file a report. I felt bile rise in my throat. The hypocrisy was so dense, so blatant, I could almost touch it. I read the message, reread it, and then simply turned off the phone screen. I left it face down on the table. I didn't mark it as read. I didn't reply. I did nothing. Silence, I realized, can be a very, very powerful answer. Another week passed. The silence became heavier. Now there was only 1 week left until the big event. I was at the gym, on the treadmill, trying to sweat out the frustration when my phone rang. It was a call, Dad. My pulse raced, but not from the exercise. I rejected the call. A minute later it vibrated again, a voicemail. I let it finish recording. I got off the treadmill, took a towel, and listened to the message. My father's voice. Irritated, impatient. The voice of the boss. Ignacio. CFE called. They say they're going to cut the power if it isn't paid today. The bill is overdue. What the hell is wrong with you? Stop acting like a child and pay that now. Don't make me look bad. Don't make me look bad. Not a, sorry. Not a, son, I think I exaggerated. Not a, could you please? Just an order, a worry about his image. I stared at my sweaty reflection in the gym mirror. Stop acting like a child. Ironic. Coming from the man who had forbidden me from going to his wife's party because of a tantrum over social status. I deleted the voicemail. I didn't reply. The silence became heavier. I went on with my life in Mexico City. Meetings, reports, dinners with friends, the life of a weirdo. But I knew with absolute certainty that the time bomb was ticking. Utility companies in Mexico don't play around. If you don't pay, they cut you off. And cuts rarely happen at the most convenient time. It was Saturday, the big day, my mother's 58th birthday, the day of the official presentation of the regional manager. While in Puebla my family was surely running from one side to another, inflating balloons and cooling beers, I was in my apartment in Colonia Condesa. And yes, just as my mother imagined my easy life, I was in pajamas. It was 11 in the morning. I made myself expensive coffee in my French press, reading a science fiction book. The day in Mexico City was cloudy, gray, as if the sky knew what was coming. I imagined the scene at my parents' house. The backyard that I myself had helped tile one summer, full of noisy aunts, uncles, and cousins. The unmistakable smell of mole poblano that my mother had been cooking for 2 days. Cumbia music at full volume. And my empty chair, a chair that I was sure nobody cared about. I checked my phone. Nothing. Total silence. Not a, we miss you, message. Nothing. Hours passed. 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Surely they were already in full meal mode, beers flowing. I imagined my father proudly introducing Ramiro, the regional manager. I went to take a shower. I decided to go out, I wasn't going to let their party ruin my Saturday. Just as I was drying off, at exactly 4 p.m., my phone vibrated on the marble bathroom counter. The sound bounced off the tiles. Mom. I looked at the name on the screen. My heart gave a jolt, a stab of guilt and resentment, but I stood firm. I let it ring. 1, 2, 3. Until it went to voicemail. I was putting on my jeans. 4:05 p.m. The phone vibrated again. Dad. I rejected the call. I didn't even think about it. My thumb moved on its own. 4:06 p.m. Vibrated again. Lorena. I rejected the call with more force. I could almost taste the panic on the other end of the line. Something was wrong, very wrong. I leaned on the edge of my bed. The book no longer interested me. I waited. At 5:10 p.m., the real storm broke loose. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, not with calls, but with an avalanche of text messages. The first was from my mother, in all caps, Ignacio. The power went out. We have no light. We are in the dark. For the love of God. The whole family is here. The guests. Pay the bill quickly. You are embarrassing me. You are embarrassing me. The irony was delicious. I read the message. CFE doesn't forgive. The cutoff date arrived and click. They flipped the switch in the middle of the party with all the guests. A second later, another message. My father. No water. Your mother can't finish cooking. The bathroom doesn't work. It's a disaster. Answer the phone, useless. Fix this right now. Of course. Without electricity, the water pump doesn't work. The castle was crumbling, the mole half-heated, the toilets clogged. And a third, my sister, the princess. Sky and Wi-Fi cut out. Ramiro is here and his family. I can't play the music. How embarrassing. Do something urgent. The embarrassment. The shame. The only thing that seemed to matter to them. I stared at the 3 messages, one after another, glowing in the darkness of my room. The holy trinity of their desperation: light, water, internet. The 3 things I provided. The 3 things they took for granted. The 3 things that made me useful. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt a confirmed emptiness, a deep, heavy sadness. I realized that in all those years, they had never needed me, Ignacio. They needed my money, they needed my obedience. They didn't call because they missed me, they called because the ATM had stopped working. My phone didn't stop vibrating. It was crazy. It turned into a symphony of panic. Missed calls from my mother, 6, my father, 10. Lorena, 12. I rejected them all. And then, around 6 p.m., the attack changed fronts, like an army changing strategy. It was no longer my nuclear family, it was them, the relatives, the heavy artillery. The family WhatsApp group, Los Garcia de Puebla, of which I was a ghost member, only read, never wrote, exploded. My phone almost melted. Uncle Beto, Ignacio, what a bastard you are. Seriously, your mom is crying on her birthday. You have no forgiveness from God. Cousin Chela, hey Nacho, we always knew you were the envious weirdo, but this is crossing the line. Lorena is right, you just want to ruin her day because she does have someone and you don't. How sad. Aunt Lucha, your father is furious. He says you are an ingrate after everything they have done for you, giving you an education and everything. What an embarrassment of a nephew. Embarrassment. There was that word again, like an echo. The same one my father used to exile me. Now they used it to attack me for not continuing to pay for my own exile. The irony was so bitter, so acidic, it made me smile. I read every message with clinical detachment, like a surgeon examining a tumor. I was used to it. In my family, the truth never mattered, only the version of the person who yelled the loudest mattered, and that was always Lorena or my father. I was the perfect scapegoat, the envious weirdo. I was about to put the phone on airplane mode. I was fed up with the toxicity, fed up with being the villain in a story they wrote. Just when my finger was going to press the airplane icon, the screen lit up with an incoming video call. Aunt Ophelia. My heart stopped. She was the only one. The only one who Googled me, the only one who saw me, the only one who mattered. I hesitated a second. What was I going to tell her? How to explain this? But my finger, almost of its own will, pressed the green accept icon. The image connected. Aunt Ophelia's face filled the screen, her eyes big and full of worry. The scene behind her was absolute chaos. She was in the kitchen, and as I had imagined, the only light came from a cell phone flashlight someone was holding, creating long, ghostly shadows on the walls. You could hear people talking in shouts, the metallic sound of dishes, and a tension so thick it could almost be felt through the screen. Megiddo, she whispered to the camera, cupping her hand around the phone microphone as if afraid of being heard. It was you, wasn't it? You cut the payments. I swallowed hard. I looked her in the eyes, my only ally. My voice broke for the first time all day. Auntie, it was Dad. He kicked me out. He forbade me from going to the party. He said I am an embarrassment to the family. He said if I dared to go, not to call him father ever again. I saw Aunt Ophelia's eyes open wide, full of horror and an understanding that validated me instantly. That wretched man, she began to say, her voice full of fury. I knew he. But before she could finish, the phone was snatched abruptly from her hand. The image shook violently. Give me that, useless aunt. And suddenly, my sister Lorena's face filled the screen. It was distorted by anger. Her perfect makeup had run from sweat and tears of frustration. The hair that had surely spent 3 hours in the salon was disheveled. The bad light of the flashlight made her look like a demon out of a horror movie. Damn you, Ignacio, she screamed. The phone's audio saturated, turning her voice into a sharp shriek. You dare to answer? After what you did? You ruined my mom's party. You ruined my night. Behind her, the scene was pandemonium. I could hear my father's voice yelling in the distance, drunk with rage, tell him he's a starvation wage nobody. A nobody. If I see him I'll. And then my mother's hysterical, tearful voice, what an embarrassment. What an embarrassment in front of Ramiro, in front of his family. My God, what an embarrassment. Lorena refocused the camera on her enraged face. Her eyes drilled into me. All this is your fault, she spat, and I could see the saliva fly. All because you're jealous. Jealous of Ramiro's boyfriend. Because he is successful. Because he is someone. He is a regional manager at a real company. He does have a future. She paused to breathe, a trembling gulp of fury. Not like you. You are nothing. Nothing. You're just a damn antisocial weirdo who hides in his room to play with the computer. That's what you are. A failure. A starvation wage code pecker. You don't even reach Ramiro's heels. Did you hear me? Not even his heels. I remained silent, completely motionless. I just watched her. I let every word come out of her mouth, every insult, every ounce of poison she had saved for me for 30 years. Antisocial weirdo, failure, starvation wage nobody, not even his heels. Every word was another nail sealing the coffin of any affection I once felt for her. I said nothing. My silence seemed to infuriate her even more. It was unhinging her. Aren't you going to say anything, imbecile? What is wrong with you? Answer. Fix this now. Take out your card and pay for the light, failure. And just at that moment, while her face was contracted in a mask of fury, a hand appeared on her shoulder. A calm, firm hand. The hand on Lorena's shoulder belonged to a man. He appeared behind her, entering the camera frame, wearing a suit that looked expensive even in the trembling light of the flashlight. His hair was perfectly combed, not a hair out of place. It was him, Ramiro, the regional manager. He looked incredibly uncomfortable. His face was tense. "Lorena, please, calm down," he said, his voice low and controlled. He tried to gently pull her away from the camera. "I'm not going to calm down. This imbecile ruined us," she started screaming, but Ramiro wasn't listening to her. He was staring fixedly at the phone screen. His eyes met mine. I saw in slow motion how his face went through 5 stages of shock. First, confusion. What is this guy doing on the video call? Second, recognition. Wait, I know that face. Third, absolute panic. No, it can't be. Fourth, terror. It is him. Fifth, professional submission. His eyes opened wide, he paled. I could see a drop of sweat forming on his temple. I recognized him instantly, of course. It was Ramiro Fuentes, the new key account manager we had hired for the expansion in the Baguio region. He had been at the company for exactly 3 weeks. His reports came directly to my operations team. I myself had conducted his final interview. We talked for an hour. I had approved his hiring. I had signed the offer with the salary that was probably impressing my family so much. While Lorena kept screaming, "Antisocial weirdo," like a broken record, Ramiro, pale as a ghost and sweating cold, stammered. "Sir," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He tried again, louder, interrupting Lorena's shrieking. "Sir. Mr. Ignacio. Wah. What are you doing here? Good evening." "Good evening, Director." The silence was instant. It was absolute. It was glorious. It was so deep I swear I could hear the buzz of the cell phone flashlight and the dripping of a faucet in the kitchen. Lorena's mocking, furious smile froze on her face. She turned slowly, like in a horror movie, to look at Ramiro. "What? What did you say?" My father's voice yelling, "Starvation wage nobody," from the patio stopped abruptly. My mother's hysterical crying turned into a choked gasp. Aunt Ophelia, who somehow had managed to get the phone back, now focused on the scene with a perverse half-smile that I loved. A whisper was heard in the background. I think it was Uncle Beto. What did he say? "Director? Director of what?" Ramiro, realizing the nuclear disaster he was standing in, straightened up. He adjusted his tie note, a professional reflex. He looked at my family, then at the camera, and then at my family again, like a man explaining a complicated equation to a group of kindergartners. I work at Cobalto Financial," he said, swallowing hard. "Mr. Ignacio is the chief operating officer and co-founder of the company. He is my boss." The silence that followed was thicker, heavier, more delicious. I stared straight at the camera. I observed Lorena's face, which had gone from fury red to ghost white. I saw my father's mouth open, incredulous. I saw my mother bring a hand to her chest. I nodded slowly, just once, a silent confirmation. Then I spoke. My voice, after so much silence, sounded calm, clear, and thunderous in the midst of the chaos. "Ramiro, what a pleasure to see you. I hope you enjoy the presentation." And I hung up the call. That night I turned off my phone, poured myself another double mezcal, and for the first time in 30 years, I slept deeply, like a man who had finally taken a weight off his shoulders, a weight of 184,000 pesos and 30 years of humiliations. On Sunday morning I woke up without an alarm, something that hadn't happened in years. The Mexico City sun streamed through my bedroom window. For the first time, I didn't feel the usual weekend anxiety, that feeling that I should be doing something productive. I felt light. I turned on my phone. It exploded. 47 missed calls. 82 WhatsApp messages. They were from my parents, from Lorena, from aunts, uncles, cousins. I ignored them, I deleted them all without reading them. Instead, I opened my work email. I wanted to see if the real world was still in place. And there it was. A new message sent at 3:45 a.m. from Ramiro Fuentes. Subject, urgent apology, family situation. My heart jumped. I felt a pang of compassion for the poor guy. I opened the email. Dear Director Ignacio, it began. It was long, very long. Ramiro detailed his shock, his confusion, how he couldn't connect the failure Lorena had told him about with the director he respected. But the important part was at the end. Director, I have no words to apologize for the behavior of Lorena and her family. I had no idea of the connection. I swear to you that the professional respect I have for you is genuine. You were one of the reasons I accepted the offer at Cabo Alto. What I saw last night, the way they treated you, the way they spoke to you, was unacceptable and frankly terrifying. I cannot in good conscience be with a person who treats their own blood like that, let alone a man from whom I have learned so much in such a short time. I know this is unprofessional, and I apologize for airing it, but I feel I must tell you. I ended my relationship with her last night. I will submit my resignation on Monday. I understand the situation is untenable. I couldn't look you in the face again. My sincerest apologies for the situation. I sighed. Poor guy. What a way to meet the in-laws. But I wasn't going to lose a good employee because of my family's circus. I sat down and wrote a short, concise, professional response. From Ignacio Garcia. Subject, urgent apology, family situation. Ramiro, I appreciate your honesty. Thank you for writing to me. What you do with your personal life is your decision and has absolutely no impact on your position at Cabo Alto. You do not have to resign. In fact, I ask you not to. I never, ever mix business with family matters. Your performance in these first weeks has been excellent. The Baguio project is key. See you on Tuesday at the results meeting. Regards, Ignacio. I hit send. For me, that matter was closed. 10 minutes later, my personal phone vibrated. A message from Lorena. She was no longer silenced. Message from Lorena, Ignacio. Please, please, please answer me. I know you're there. Ramiro dumped me. Message from Lorena, he dumped me last night in front of everyone. He humiliated me. And it's all your fault. He respects you, he admires you. He told me you were his director. Why didn't you tell me? Message from Lorena, speak to him. You are his boss. Order him to come back to me. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. Tell him I'm not like that I was stressed. Message from Lorena, please, Nacho, I beg you. I'll do whatever you want. I swear. Forgive me for what I said, I didn't mean it seriously. Please. I looked at the messages. I'll do whatever you want. Order him to return. How different it sounded from antisocial weirdo. Desperation didn't suit her. I wrote a simple response, the last one I would ever send her. Response from Ignacio, he didn't leave you because of me, Lorena. He left you because of you. Message from Lorena, no. No. I was a fool. I was angry. You know how I get. Seriously, I'm going to change. I promise. But help me, please. He is a good man. I don't want to lose him. I read that last message. I'm going to change. How many times had I heard that? I felt a pang of pity, but it was a distant, cold pity, like watching an insect drown in a spiderweb. I didn't reply. Instead, this time I did block her number forever. The following week was quiet, too quiet. No messages, no calls, the calm after the storm. On the following Friday, I was arriving at my apartment at night, exhausted. It was 10 p.m. It had been a long day closing the quarter. All I wanted was to take off my shoes and order a pizza. The lobby guard stopped me. Mr. Ignacio, he said with an uncomfortable face. Good evening. Listen, your parents are here in the lobby. My blood froze. A chill ran down my back. Here. In Mexico City? Yes, sir. They arrived about an hour ago. They say it's urgent. They look very tired. Tired. I took a deep breath. It's okay, Miguel. Let them up. I went down to meet them at the elevator, and there they were, sitting on one of the designer sofas in the lobby, looking completely out of place. My father with his usual denim jacket, my mother with her knitted sweater and handbag on her lap. They had 2 small suitcases at their feet. They looked exactly as Miguel said, tired, defeated, and for the first time in my life, old. My heart, that treacherous imbecile, softened for a second. The anger dissipated. Mom, Dad, what are you doing here? Why didn't you let me know? My father stood up. He looked diminished, shorter. Son, he said, and his voice was soft, scratchy. It wasn't the voice of the man who had yelled at me on the phone. We needed to see you. To talk to you. We went up in the elevator in a sepulchral silence. I offered them water. They sat rigidly on my leather sofa, looking around my apartment, a place they had never bothered to visit, with a mixture of awe and resentment. My father was the first to speak. He looked at his hands. Son, we're sorry. I stayed still. I said nothing. We crossed the line, he continued. I crossed the line. What I said to you on the phone was wrong, very wrong. I shouldn't have said it. My mother nodded with genuine tears in her eyes this time. We should never have told you that, Mijito. We were stressed about the party, about that boy, Ramiro. But there is no excuse. Forgive us, please. I said nothing, just listened, waited. There was something about this apology that didn't feel real. It felt rehearsed. And then, like a snake coming out of the grass, my father arrived. He cleared his throat, regaining a bit of his old authority. Son, we are family. And family helps each other, right? We raised you, we gave you an education, we made you the man you are. There was the invoice. My mother took over with her soft, sweet, manipulative voice as always. And now that we know you're doing so well, that you're a director of such a big company. Well, we thought you could support us like you did before. Sure. But better, right? I asked, my voice flat, emotionless. Yes, Mijito, she said, smiling nervously, wiping away a fake tear. We were thinking. And the situation in Puebla is very hard. Your father and I, maybe you could support us with about 40,000 pesos a month. I mean, for someone like you with that huge job, it shouldn't be much. It's fair, right? And that way we live calmly and you are right with God. 40,000 pesos. They had quintupled the rate. I almost laughed. Seriously, a bitter laugh got stuck in my throat. I didn't do it, but the irony was overwhelming. Ramiro, the regional manager, the improved resource, was gone. Lorena had failed. So they returned to the original resource, the weirdo, but this time with an updated invoice according to my new title. This wasn't an apology, it was a contract renegotiation. I looked at the 2 people sitting on my leather sofa. The people who had given me life and who had spent 30 years trying to take it away from me piece by piece. 40,000 pesos, I repeated, testing the words. I understand. They relaxed visibly. My mother smiled, relieved. My father nodded as if the matter were closed. The good son had returned to the fold. Sure, I said, my voice calm. Sounds fair. After all, you raised me. Oh, Mijito, my mother exclaimed, clasping her hands. I knew you would understand. I knew you had a good heart. I only have one condition, I continued, and their smiles froze. They went out like candles in the wind. What condition? My father asked. And his voice was no longer soft, there was a hint of his old hostility. It's simple, very simple, I said, leaning forward. And Lorena? How much is she going to contribute? My mother blinked, confused. Oh, Majito, but how can you think that? Lorena, your sister, she is devastated. She is very depressed. She lost Ramiro. I think they are even going to fire her from work because of the scandal. No, no, poor thing, she can't. She needs our support. I understand, I said, and my voice was as cold as ice. Then let's do this. Option A, if Lorena contributes 40,000 pesos a month, I contribute 40,000 pesos a month. Equal treatment, 50-50. But I'm telling you she can't, my mother shrieked, her voice rising in pitch. Then option B, I said, raising a hand to silence her. If you want me to pay everything the 40,000, or 80,000 if she also needs it perfect, no problem. But we go to a notary tomorrow. We draft a legal agreement, signed and sealed. The house in Puebla, the house where I grew up, will be 100% in my name the moment you are gone. It's a fair exchange. I take care of you for life, and the property that I maintain passes to me, not to Lorena. The silence that fell in the room was total, dense, rotten. And then my father exploded. The defeated man disappeared. The tyrant returned. He jumped to his feet, hitting the glass coffee table with such force that my glass of water jumped and spilled. You are a damn ingrate, he roared, face red with fury. Your mother has cried for a week because of you, and now you come with this. Putting conditions on your own parents. Bad son. After everything we did for you. I gave you a roof, I gave you food, and now you want to take the house from us. I stood up too, but I wasn't yelling. I was completely calm. I stared him straight in the eyes, and for the first time in my life, he didn't hold my gaze, he averted it. Father, I said, and my voice was low, but it cut through his shouting like a scalpel. You were right the first time we spoke. He looked at me, confused. What? What are you saying? You were right, I repeated. I was an embarrassment. I was an embarrassment to myself for allowing you to treat me like your servant, your bank, and your scapegoat for 20 years. I was an embarrassment for canceling my vacations to pay Lorena's credit card debts disguised as broken boilers. I was an embarrassment for continuing to pay while you despised me and called me a weirdo. I stepped closer to him, invading his space. He took a step back. But that is over. Today. I walked to the door of my apartment and opened it wide. Please, get out of my house. My mother let out a choked sob. You're kicking us out, Ignacio. I am asking you to leave my house, I said without looking at her. Now my father looked at me seeking anger, seeking a fight, seeking the 10-year-old boy he could intimidate. He found nothing. Just an end. They took their small suitcases and, in a sepulchral silence, left my apartment. I closed the door. The click of the lock was, again, the sweetest sound in the world. 2 years have passed since that day. It was the last time I saw my parents or my sister. I didn't change my phone number, I didn't block their emails, I simply stopped. I stopped being the one who crossed the bridge. I stopped being the one who called, who sought, who begged for affection. And I discovered something terrifying, the bridge actually only had one lane. The one that went from me to them. My Aunt Ophelia and I talk every week. She is my true family. She comes to Mexico City, we go to dinner, we laugh. She tells me about them sometimes. They still live in Puebla, on my father's modest pension. Apparently, the first few months were very hard. They had to sell the Sky package. They had to learn to live with slower internet. They had to get used to the power sometimes going out. Lorena got another job, a more modest one, in an office. She no longer appears in the social pages. My aunt tells me they tell the whole family, everyone who will listen, the tragic story of the ungrateful and arrogant son. The story of the monster whose big city money went to his head and who abandoned his elderly parents. Some aunts and uncles stop talking to me, others look at me with pity at the rare family gatherings I go to, and which they conveniently do not attend. I don't care. I sleep well at night. I live in peace. My company, Cobalto, went public last year. We hit the stock market. I guess now I am officially very comfortable to explain, but you know what? I'm no longer interested in explaining it to them. I learned, the hard way, at 30 years old, that family is not a magic word that gives you the right to abuse someone. It's not a blank check. It's not an unlimited credit card for a person's kindness and patience. I learned that blood makes you relatives, but it's loyalty, respect, and mutual love that makes you family. And my family, in the end, turned out to be much smaller than I thought. I am no longer an emotional ATM, I am no longer a resource. I am simply Ignacio. And for the first time in my life, that is more than enough. But now, after telling you all this, I want to ask you something. To all of you who listened to my story until the end, I have healed, I am at peace. But sometimes at night, when the silence is very big, doubt visits me. That little ghost of guilt they program into you since childhood. Did I do the right thing? Was I wrong to refuse to support my parents with 40,000 pesos a month, even though, yes, they raised me? Was I too cold, too calculating in making the house a condition, or was I finally learning to love myself and setting the boundaries I should have set 20 years ago? What would you have done in my place? Leave me your honest opinion in the comments. I really want to read them and know what you think. And if this story moved something in you, if it made you feel, if it made you angry or gave you hope, I ask you from my heart to like the video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of the family drama stories that are to come. Thanks for listening to the end. See you next time.